welcome to another episode of
80-bit Podsmash,
where gaming goes to grab a beer. We are your hosts, Penguin and Termite.
Woo! I can do it too. We are on episode 18. Yeah, 18. Our episode is legal.
Oh, look at that.
To smoke cigarettes.
It's so cute. It's so good.
We can smoke cigarettes now in 80-bit Podsmash, though we've been drinking beer since episode 1.
There's another thing we can do illegally as well, but
well,
no one's checking ID for that.
A lot of things we can do legally. So, yay! Happy 18th birthday, 80-bit Podsmash.
Episode 18.
Even though it's not even been a year.
Nope.
Oh, man, that
we
intro...
are approaching a happy year, though.
That intro got away from us, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, nothing. What's going on in the world of Termite today?
I listened to a couple podcasts wrapping up the end of 2017, and one of them got me thinking about hardware release possibilities or announcements for 2018 as far as video games. And given that the Xbox One X just came out this past year, I doubt we're going to hear anything new on the Microsoft front.
Okay.
Given the success of the Switch, doubt we're going to see any hardware revisions or anything. It's going to be pretty quiet there. Maybe some cool Joy-Cons or something, but that's about it for Nintendo.
Okay.
But now we have the PlayStation 4. Are we going to hear about PlayStation 5 this year?
Did the PlayStation 4 Pro just come out?
I think that was November of 2016.
Oh.
So it's been a full year for the Pro to kind of have its way. And Sony never really made a big deal about it. It just kind of like fell out onto the market, and they were never like promoting it. Where Microsoft went the other way with the Xbox One X. They were like the strongest console ever, like all the time. It's the best video game console. But Sony was just like, yeah, there's a Pro. It exists if you like it.
If you want
it's
it,
here.
yeah.
If you have a 4K TV, it's cool.
I don't know. This does seem like the subject for another episode, but...
we could talk about this for a while, but
I don't think...
It's on my brain. You asked.
Oh, I understand. No, perfectly. I would argue that the PS4 is still selling very strongly. In fact...
It is. There's 70 million right now.
Didn't they sell more consoles in 2017 than they have...
Yeah, since its launch.
Yeah. So it's still selling so well. I can't imagine Sony's going, or any of the major hardware companies are going to release a new piece of hardware while the other one's still selling better than it has before. True. Especially since a lot of consumers just bought PlayStation 4s. Yeah. If you then found out PlayStation 5 was coming out, wouldn't you be a little annoyed because you just bought one?
Yep.
There's an argument to be made that, you should have gotten it when it first came out, but I don't know. So that would be the only thing that I would think would prevent them from launching. And then there's probably in development, but I don't think it's going to launch yet.
Oh, it's definitely being, or research, R&D, research and development. Yeah. Then there's the question of these half-step kind of console releases. What's the PlayStation 5 going to look like? Is it going to be just every game that comes out for PS5 works on the PlayStation 4. It's just a little less cool.
I would hope that there would be at least backwards... I don't know. I miss the good old days of backwards compatibility on all these consoles. And
me too.
And it would be really nice if at least the PlayStation... For those who bought the PlayStation 4 and bought games for it, it would be nice to play the PlayStation 4 games on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
But...
So that's what's on my mind.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
You've had a good New Year, have you?
I have. I made a bet with my wife that I could lose 30 pounds.
Yeah,
in 6 months.
You got this. I'm going to help you.
Yeah. I will say that I'm only 3 days into it, and the changes I've made to my diet are already, it's not so much even the actual eating itself. I'm hungry, and I've been hungry more, and I was really irritable at work today because I was hungry. But it's also the mind game of being I can't eat the things I want to eat until X time.
Yeah.
That mind game of just trying to get my head around that is really frustrating. So, I don't know. This episode will be out, 3 weeks from now? So maybe things will be different by the time this launches.
Hopefully.
But I can tell you, man, I've been irritable and hungry, and my wife is going to murder me, I think, before I lose the amount of weight that I intend to, because I'm just annoying her more. I'm already kind of annoying to my wife. I spent 18 years of my life being a little brother to twin sisters. Call out Kristen and Kelly if you're listening, but you're not.
Ooh, double call out.
Double call out. So I spent 18 years annoying them, so I'm just really good at annoying women. So my poor wife has to suffer through me being hungry and annoying.
All right. Yeah. I'm also trying to lose 20 pounds to drop down to my ideal race weight for a marathon I'm looking out to do in April. And so I am tracking calories as my way of changing how much I eat because Alex and I went through a transformation similar to what you're describing, probably in 2013, of just like eating way healthier foods and like changing our grocery store habits and our eating out habits completely, turning them on their heads. And so now it's just, for me, it's a matter of how much I eat.
Yeah.
And then the impulse foods of like, someone brought donuts to work, I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Some jerk, sorry, whoever you are, who brought fudge into my work today, you deserve to be thrown off of the 17th
I don't know
floor.
about you, but at like 1:30, I want to go to sleep. And when someone brings in a donut or fudge, I want coffee to go with it. And then I get excited, and then I stand up and walk across the whole place and go get it. So now it's just a matter of saying no to that and significantly reducing how much beer I consume.
Mm-hmm.
Not for this, though.
Yes, I'm
we'll
with you.
Always have a tink.
There will always be something to tink. Tinky and drinky.
I likewise will be annoying my wife, as she is the primary cook, and I have to talk about calories and the recipes she's cooking and pump all that into data, and she hates everything about what I do when it comes to data. I have this watch that tracks your steps and runs and calories, and I track everything I eat and how much calories I burn, so I make sure I have that caloric deficit.
See, we annoy our wives for completely different reasons, though. You annoy your wife because of all the details and specificity of what you're doing. I annoy my wife because I'm just like, I'm hungry, feed me.
Well, I do that too.
Can I have popcorn? Can I have an apple? No, I'm like a child. I'm basically
sounds like it.
I've basically reverted to a 5-year-old child. It's great. But I'm gonna look good for all of our promotional shots that we do. By the time you guys see us at cons,
we'll
be looking good.
I'll be able to fit in that suit I bought. Yeah, buddy.
We'll be looking real good. I imagine when you mean suit, you mean like a cosplay. Like,
no, I have a suit.
Like a Samus suit.
No, like a gentleman's actual suit that I don't fit into anymore. I have 3 of them.
I'm going to buy you or have commissioned someone to design a termite onesie for you to wear to match my penguin onesie.
Ooh, okay.
I have a penguin onesie, and you're going to wear that suit.
Maybe Kristen will do it for
cons.
us.
Kristen! Design him a termite onesie.
Look at Penguin Man's for inspiration. It's got to be very simple. Like teddy bear simple.
Yeah, like teddy bear simple. All right. Let's go ahead and move into our DLC for the day. And we're going to blow through this real fast. DLC for the day. Downloadable content is what DLC stands for those of you who are just joining us. It's a little mini discussion, a little game that we do before we go into the main topic of discussion for the day. So yeah, you'll get used to lots of DLCs. Our topic today is going to be about movies, so I wanted to talk a little bit about movies.
Movies. Popcorn.
Movies and video games. You'll be hearing that a lot today. So we love movies, and by way of DLC today, I came up with a idea where we pick a character in a movie that we think could have benefited from some kind of video game related power. So it could be a power that you, the player, has to save or pause the game. It could be a power like the characters have in a video game. You know, it could be something like in BioShock. They can use plasmids. It could be any number of powers: regeneration, health kits, armor, that kind of stuff. So Termite and I are going to each pick a character from a movie, and we're going to do a quick little explanation as to why we think they could have benefited from a video game power.
All right. You want me to go first? You want to go first?
You go for it.
Okay, so I'm going to use Tom Hanks in Apollo 13. He was playing the astronaut Jim Lovell. And if you guys are familiar with the story of Apollo 13, they had a oxygen deficiency in the spacecraft while they were in space. And it was actually risky about them not being able to return home or have enough oxygen to make it back. And so they would have benefited severely from Borderlands, the pre-sequel's Oz kits, which is like a little high-tech face helmet thing that provides oxygen.
Yeah.
Albeit
it's straightforward.
It's limited. I mean, that oxygen drains, and you have to go
so
refill
they have,
it.
A bunch of Oz kits?
Right. So they would have
around.
had, and spare portable, recharge kits for it in advance. That would have been very helpful for them to get through their
How is that different
day.
from, a just regular oxygen inside the ship?
Because that broke. It's a redundancy they didn't have.
Oh, okay.
The Oz kits would be an easy, portable, high-tech, non-existent in real life, video game power that they could just have. Oh, let me go get my Oz kit.
Not like artificial oxygen or artificial gravity or, fast speed boost.
They didn't. It's not artificial oxygen. They brought it with them.
All right. Okay.
They're in tanks.
I'm with you.
They launched that.
I'm with you. Yeah, Oz kits. Oz kits for the Apollo 13 crew.
Yes.
I'm going to pick Frodo from Lord of the Rings and the Fellowship in general. Just they could have benefited from a fast travel tower. Like any video game, Assassin's Creed, Shadow of Mordor, Breath of the Wild, even Horizon Zero Dawn has campfires.
Yeah.
So yeah, just any fast travel ability, just being able to like fast travel to Gondor or fast travel to Mountain Dew.
You know what you just highlighted in all of those games? You have to have been there first. Okay, so the fast travel would have helped them get home, but they had eagles for that anyway.
I mean, like Aragorn has probably been to all those places.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he could have
okay, Side characters could have teleported everywhere. Gandalf.
Yeah.
He could have just been like, bloop.
Yeah, because Gandalf's been there. So they could have just, I mean, Frodo doesn't even need it. Frodo wouldn't have had to go on at all. Or like
Gandalf
if he did,
could have done it.
If he did, he could have, if there was still the worry of like, oh, you'll be tempted by the ring, then like.
It could happen so fast.
Yeah,
there's no room for temptation.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's just like, Gandalf, grab it, teleport, drop it. Done.
Doom,
Next.
boom, Mountain Doom, fast travel. And if you try to say that none of the characters have been to Mount Doom, that's dumb. Someone had to have been to Mount Doom
at some point.
Gandalf's been alive for hundreds and hundreds of years, and that
we have a listener or a couple that are extremely well versed in Lord of the Rings lore and could correct us in a minute.
Gonna go in and be like, Gandalf was an Astari, and he would have only been around during the Second Age. And I'm gonna be like, nerd, and I'm gonna punch him in the face. But I'm not gonna do that because I love my Podsmashers.
You sound like me talking about PC gamers.
Nerd. No, I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I have, to my shame, not read the Silmarillion though.
Why would you do that?
Because I really don't have an explanation for it.
Have you read the first 3 books?
Other than to say, I've read the Silmarillion.
Right.
Yeah, I've read the 3 books.
You actually got through them?
Yeah, I also read the appendices, son.
And you're having trouble getting through the Way of Kings?
It's different.
The Book of Kings? What is
different? It's called the Way of Kings. It's not.
Right. Okay.
It's not the actual book itself that I'm having trouble with. It's just reading. When I read Lord of the Rings trilogy, I actually just had a habit of reading more. I like to read. I wanted to read. My problem is, since finishing Game of Thrones, since finishing A Song of Ice and Fire...
Oh, you finished Game of Thrones. Okay, wow. All right. That's... Yeah.
Yeah, it was back when we had I don't
That's
know,
awesome.
A year into marriage, we were still living in the apartment, and I still read back then. So, but really since I've started this new job... I've been doing it for almost 2 years now. But since I started that job, I just haven't really made time to read like I used to, so...
Yeah, sorry we got off the rails.
A little bit off the rails. DLC, talking about penguins' reading deficiencies.
And video game powers in books.
Woo!
Movies.
Books and movies, yeah.
Sorry, you got me talking about books because Lord of the Rings is based on a book.
I guess it was a book, yeah.
It was.
Wow, that kind of...
Keep a feather in that hat, because we'll talk about that exact relationship later.
Woo! Exciting. All right. So, like we said, and now that we got you primed, now we primed the pump for you thinking about movies and video games together. That's exactly what we're talking about today in our topic. We're going to just kind of talk about the relationship between movies and video games. Specifically, I wanted to kind of answer the question, like, why is it so hard to translate video games into the medium of film, whether that's, and as a sort of disclaimer, this is kind of all-encompassing for film. This could mean TV as well as movies. So when we're talking about these adaptations...
it's kind of a new thing that Netflix picks up like a show and just drops seasons of it.
Yeah. So it's kind of a catch-all. So we'll probably be specific and say that, we think this should be a video game, or this should be a TV show, this should be a movie. But specifically, I just wanted to kind of caveat that we might say movie, but we mean film as a medium altogether. We wanted to talk about why is it that there are no good video game movies?
Why is it so hard? Why?
Yeah, why?
Come on, guys.
So we're going to start, and we're going to talk about, first we're going to ask, are there any good video game movies out there at all? So, are there any? No? You don't think so?
Not a single one.
There are very few, in the research I was doing, there are very few that have received critical acclaim. There was one notable exception. It wasn't the critics didn't, laud it as, anything as high as, any comic book movie, any good comic book movie these days. It's no Spider-Man Homecoming, it's no Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it's no The Last Jedi, but Prince of Persia, the movie that came out.
I saw that in theaters.
I did too. And I didn't think it was that bad. It was entertaining. I enjoyed it. I only really played one of the games all the way through, so I'm not a huge Prince of Persia fan.
Oh, that's true. I never played any of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know anything about the games.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, to be fair, as far as an adaptation goes, it was good. It kind of hit the beats that you expect from a Prince of Persia, but it was also an original story. It wasn't like it was trying too hard to recreate what the games did. And we'll talk about that as more when we get into talking about what does make a good adaptation. But it wasn't bad. And I thought the Tomb Raider 1.
I saw both of those in theaters.
Yeah. I thought Tomb Raider 1 was excellent.
I don't remember them.
It was, I mean,
so long ago.
Angelina Jolie is a great Lara
great.
Croft. Yeah, I think so. I think Angelina Jolie made a great Lara Croft. And I don't know, it wasn't Indiana Jones, but it was on the same level of National Treasure in regards to like a treasure hunt movie.
No, National Treasure was awesome compared to Tomb Raider. Compared to Tomb Raider.
I think they're both around the same level. They're both good B movies, you know?
Oh, definitely B.
Yeah, definitely
but I think
B
Tomb Raider would
movies.
be C.
I disagree. I really like the first one. The second one, I agree. Definitely a C. But the first one was entertaining, for sure, in my opinion.
Are you using the alphabet to describe Lara Croft?
There's so many directions I could have gone with that. And family-friendly content will... All right. So, yes, then with talking about good video game movies, what are the notably bad video game adaptations?
The obvious elephant in the room is the Mario movie,
Ugh.
which I still love, despite understanding exactly why it's bad.
Yep.
I get it.
Yep.
I'm going to give you guys this. I'm going to give you one ray of hope that this movie did that blew my mind. I found out this year, maybe a couple months ago, when Mario is set in a world where dinosaurs continued to exist and did not get extinct. Mm-hmm. What do you think would fuel cars and other like electricity?
Dino poo?
There's no fossil fuel because the dinosaurs didn't get extinct. What? The
Dino
detail
poo.
was there.
You know how like
Everything was electricity.
You know-
Everything was like solar powered or whatnot. I don't know
like
solar.
cows fart methane? I bet you dinosaurs fart methane pretty crazy too.
Right.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was cool. Like all the cars were electric.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It was a small little attention to detail.
How did they fuel the electricity?
That's another question for a different day.
Aren't there like living electricities and like little
Eels?
shock creatures in Mario that they just
cultivated
have probably like harvested?
There's little jigglies that like follow the rails on those platforming things that are in the air.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are some bad video game movies that I still love. Like, they're bad movies. The most notable recent one was the new Warcraft movie.
Yeah, we saw that in theaters.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was bad. For a movie, it was bad.
I still want to own it.
But it was still so much fun, and there were so many things. Like there was so much fanfare. And, you know, again, if you're gonna make a bad movie that's based off a video game, like props to you for at least throwing a lot of fanfare to the fans. You know, like the Draenei, like showing the Draenei there. Like I don't know, the orcs were done really fun. Like it was really fun. I thought it was great. Yeah. So I mean, but again.
We know why it's bad.
We know why it's bad. Like, we still acknowledge that it's a bad movie. I'm trying to think of other examples of movies that were just not
Doom
good.
Was horrible.
Didn't see it.
That was really bad.
Yeah.
Across the board. I was not even a little bit of hope in that movie whatsoever.
Yeah.
Had The Rock in it.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the new Rampage movie that's got The Rock in it, too.
Rock in it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm skeptical.
Me too. So, okay, you know, talking about bad video game movies, why do you think it's so hard to translate video games from the medium of video games into the medium of film? Like, why is it so hard to adapt these?
There's a bunch of different reasons, and I guess we'll discuss them.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm thinking of is the experience that the player brings to a video game. So in most games, the player affects the pacing of the storytelling, how you... analytical people or people who are like completionists are going to experience the same game totally different from someone who just wants like the story. I know with me and the trophy grinding that you guys all make fun of me for, like I want to see every nitty gritty detail. I want to know what the trophies are. I want to like get in there and 100% all of it. And so I'm going to pay a lot more attention to detail. That's going to slow my pace down. That's going to put a lot of gap between story beats. You know, that might lead to me forgetting character names, which I do all the time, and I'm shameful of. And that would lead to me like, you know, like experiencing something totally different pacing. With a movie, it's just, that's it. Like,
yeah, the pacing is what the director
30
says.
frames per second for 2 hours. That's what you get. That's your pacing. And so removing the player's like ability to perceive the story as they want or as they will from that is a difficult translation to make from a video game to a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a quote in regards to that. There was a quote from an article that we'll link off to from, I believe it is, USA Today article that talked about this. And they talked specifically about the idea that it's that interactivity that is what makes people want to play video games. There's a couple of cracked articles that we'll link off to that also hit on that same idea. It's the idea that the quote from the USA Today article is that in a video game, the player is the star. So, and I'll expand upon that idea. And, we talked about wish fulfillment in episode 6 when we talked about storytelling. And we talked about how, a lot of these video game characters are written to be kind of blank slates for the player to fill in the gaps. We all do that. We all fill in the gaps of these characters and kind of add our own personality and interpret even their written personalities. We kind of interpret them in such a way that is unique to us. To be fair, books have that same problem. Book adaptations have that same problem. When you're reading, even if a character is really well written, your imagination's kind of going to fill in the details, fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
So that's an imperfection. That's a problem that book adaptations face as well. So I wouldn't say it's a problem that's completely unique to video games. The interactivity, though, is. So a book still is set and laid out, and the pace, like you said, all that's laid out. The only really way that you interact with a book is through your imagination, whereas a video game, all the imagination is pretty much done for you, and you imagine it through the action, as opposed to through like motivation, which I think is another point that the Cracked article brings up, is that it's action, not motivation, that drives the player through a video game, the consumer, the audience, if you will. The audience of a video game is also the person who is driving the action forward, which you don't have in movies.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then there's the idea of like gameplay mechanics.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people will argue that the only good games that are out there in the world that sell really well, that are good, have solid mechanics. Like they have to play well. It has to be fun. Mm-hmm. And if it's not, story's kind of secondary to the mechanics. And you can see that a lot with like Nintendo. Their strongest game is like Mario, but the story is lacking in Mario games. It's very simple. Mm-hmm. And then like Zelda's a little bit more story heavy, but it's a little bit more complex in its mechanics. Mm-hmm. But of course it's good. And then you have games that are just amazing, like Horizon Zero Dawn, which nail the story, but have solid gameplay mechanics. Yeah. But how bad would that game be if the mechanics didn't work? Mm-hmm. If you didn't experience the world through Aloy and her hunting abilities and like how you have to stop, process. The pacing, again, is back into this. Like, as the player of Aloy, you're almost in her brain, like a book could do, based on just playing it. Yeah. There can be zero dialogue. Just you approaching a dinosaur, like, machine beast thing, and you, like, ducking into the grass and hiding and tracking its path, and, like, okay, you learn this thing is going to kill me. It's extremely dangerous. I am at a massive disadvantage. You're gonna have respect for the machine. Look how it's animated. Look how it looks, and like you can kind of guess all the little components. Okay, it's valuable. I'm gonna shoot parts off this thing. Yeah, and that means the parts mean something. It's not if it's done right. Like every aspect and details of these things matter. Yeah, with a video game or with a movie, like if Horizon Zero Dawn was a movie, it would just be like maybe some mental dialogue, and then like she would just like go up to and have this cool action sequence. And at that point, it's an action movie. Yeah, totally different experience for the exact same scene. Just because you're playing it versus experiencing it.
Right. Yeah, and there's something to be said too about the fact that you're like I was saying earlier, your personality is going to shine through in that gameplay differently from my personality.
Oh, absolutely, because I'm going to jump in there like a moron and die 8 times. And imagine how that affects the pacing.
Well,
right?
But you could play the entire, even Horizon Zero Dawn. Like it would be harder, but you could play the entire game just like rah, and hitting things with your weapon.
That's exactly what I did,
and using like all of your blow up tactics. Whereas someone else might play it by like carefully crafting every scenario and using the stealth a lot more. So you see that. Another example of that is like the Assassin's Creed franchise.
Oh, yeah.
You can run in there and kill everybody. It's harder. Or you can use stealth. So a lot of these games, especially that feature variety of gameplay, there's not a way to convey that in a movie that really gets the same sense across.
One of the articles we'll link off to actually talk about Assassin's Creed, in that we spent like 9 games learning how to stealthily approach battle situations, at least initially. Every single player who plays the game is going to start stealthily, not alerting everyone. And the movie apparently has the actor just like gung-ho in there. Yeah. Just destroying everything. Like no stealth at all.
Yeah, which is so unfortunate. Like,
because it makes cool action movies.
But like stealth makes for like a really tense stealth scene could be really interesting and really intriguing. Like, but it can't last as long. With a game, it can last longer. It could last hours. Yeah,
like one fight scene could be like 2 hours because you want to approach the stealth properly. Yeah. Whereas in a movie, if you did that for 2 hours, you'd bore everyone in the audience. Yeah. So, is there anything we can do to make movies based on video games better? So we just bashed why it doesn't work. But so is there anything we can do to fix that? If you were a movie maker, what could you do?
That's a great question. When I'm thinking about this whole topic, this whole concept, I'm trying to think about it from like a big picture perspective. So let's see, what is it, 2018?
Yep.
25 years ago, back in 1994. I don't know if I did math right there.
No, you did not.
I tried to hit mid-90s. So back in the 90s,
93,
mid-90s,
25 years ago.
we didn't really have any good comic book movies.
Right.
The best movies out there were like Superman 2, Batman Forever, and those were okay, but they just weren't quite...
Okay, Batman Returns was probably the pinnacle of comic book movies.
Sure, at the time, yeah.
But Tim Burton made that.
If you go back and watch it, it's just not the same... it's just not what comic book movies are now. It's a whole different...
Oh, yeah, now it's totally different.
entity,
right,
yeah. So, comic book... I think that video games might be the next comic book movies. We just have to find the right combination of elements. We have to find the right combination of, part of what made the comic book movie genre explode is they started to experiment with okay, let's match these directors with this movie. You saw that with Iron Man. Jon Favreau did Iron Man, and then he let a whole different writer do, or director do Thor. And so he would, and then we had Joss Whedon doing the Avengers. We had all these kind of experimental directors who came and brought something new to the table, but still under the creative vision, overarching vision of Marvel in this case. Spider-Man 2, X-Men 2, these movies paved the way for what eventually would become the kind of current, they proved that you could do sequels well. They proved that, this character we've already established with a new fighting a new villain, this idea can work. And so that kind of laid the groundwork. I agree with someone, I don't remember where I heard this, but someone said that, you might have different thoughts on Spider-Man 2 and X-Men 2, but those two movies without those two movies, we wouldn't have
superhero. They're foundational.
Yeah, they're foundational to the superhero genre as we know it today. So that,
It's funny how their third movies wrecked them.
Yeah, they're awful.
The third Spider-Man movie's garbage.
And the third X-Men movie is garbage. Yeah, because they tried to do in both of those.
I'm the Juggernaut. Remember that was a thing?
Oh, yeah, gosh. They tried to do both of those. I think the downfall there was they tried to do too much.
Oh, yeah.
All at once, which is ironic because if you look at the new Avengers movie coming out this year, Infinity War.
No, it's too much.
It's going to be so much, but it's going to be good
good
because they've spent so much time laying the foundations for it, and that's the important thing: is lay the foundation, start small, and get bigger. Start with a small cadre of characters.
One hole in your argument.
Okay.
25 years ago, the Super Mario Brothers movie came out. 93.
But that's my point. I'm saying
they've had the same amount of time.
Well, here's the other big thing.
So what's the difference?
The big difference for the comic book genre was the technology. So the technology has gotten better to be able to accurately portray superheroes.
But the technology is the same that they would use to portray video game characters.
That's... bear with me.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
The technology was better, but comic books have been around for a lot longer. In just regards to American popular culture.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Well, in general, too.
Yeah.
Video games, even in the 80s, were fairly new. In fact, they were, from a popular standpoint, brand new.
Yeah.
So... For one, there's got to be some time for it to permeate. The kind of big things that I think will make a good video game adaptation are, if you compare, again, the right writers and the right directors. We're going to end this talking about some ideas that we think would be good combinations in that regard. Some directors/writers that we would love to see take on a video game adaptation. The other thing I think is important is to pick video games that have clearly established characters and style. So again, talking about how a lot of video game characters are written to be wish fulfillment characters, blank slates, none of that.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, this means no Zelda adaptation.
Right.
Zelda adaptation wouldn't work because everybody has their own ideas what Link should be, and if you throw they tried that with the cartoon, the animated cartoon.
Gosh. Yeah.
Excuse me, princess. Giving Link a personality is a bad idea because by definition, Link's personality should be the player's. So I'm thinking games that have already established characters that already have personalities. I don't know, a great example might be Solid Snake. He has a personality. He is his own person. Nobody has illusions. Aloy would be another great example.
Yeah.
She is her own character. She is a personality. Not saying that those movies necessarily would make great movie or games would make great movie adaptations, but I'm talking about characters like that who already have a sense of who they are. Also, games that are very stylized, highly stylized. I'm thinking, Borderlands. I'm thinking BioShock. These games that have a really good feel to them. That's something that you could tangibly recreate.
Oh, I think BioShock could be a
movie.
really good movie.
Oh, we'll get to
if
that.
Done right.
That's one of mine. Yeah. The other thing I'm thinking is, well, speaking of BioShock, I'm thinking the older the better. to some degree. So some super old games that don't have good stories won't work. However, there's a sweet spot. I'm thinking that like early 2000s, like Halo, BioShock, some of these games that have like, they're old enough that people remember the story, but don't remember all of the details of their interactive experience. So, you know, you might remember, oh yeah, BioShock had these great moments, had this great setting, but I don't remember all the details of how much time I spent looking for first aid kits, you know, to avoid the big daddies, you know, like that kind of thing is, I think that there's a sweet spot of like, if it's older than like something that just came out, that's why I think Horizon Zero Dawn wouldn't make a great movie, because it's too fresh in people's minds. The whole experience is too fresh. However, give it 10 years and where it's a classic game now, and like people will want, you know, recreating that story on the screen. Again, it worked the same way it worked really well for comic books, because how long had it been since the first Spider-Man movie, for Spider-Man comic when the first Spider-Man movie came out? Sure, it had been rebooted and rehashed
like 40 years
ad nauseum, but still, like people had been familiar with that story, and if they had tried to jump in with the most recent Spider-Man in space or whatever they got going on, you know, when Spider-Man came out, like it wouldn't have worked. Exactly. So I think the older is better. And then the other last kind of point I think that would make a great video game adaptation for the film would be not to try to encapsulate the entire experience of what made the game great. Find small little bits. So, again, to bring up Metal Gear Solid, if you're going to do a Metal Gear Solid movie, make it a simple spy thriller. Don't try to go into all the details of all the crazy robots and all the crazy technology and the books and books of lore. Like, don't try to even touch on that. Start small and reveal that stuff over time. Let it kind of, like, if you're doing a 3-movie arc, like, it shouldn't be till like the end of movie 2 that you realize what this conspiracy is and what's going on. Like, that's when the thing should really begin to like, you can do it, but like start it as a spy thriller. Start it as a simple movie. Same thing with Assassin's Creed would be another great example. Like the whole, you know, Animus and all that stuff. Like, axe that and just do a simple historical thriller, historical action movie thriller, and like
with like an end credits.
And
scene?
the end credits, you see him come out of the Animus. Like, that's how you make a good, like, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it so like, we want all these movies, even Tomb Raider was kind of guilty of this. Like, they're all trying to do this. Like, this is so big and this is so important because that's what it's like in the video game.
Right.
But the video game has the advantage of like building that over time through the experience and through the lore and all the little bits and details you pull out of it. Movies can't do that. So, like, start small and then get bigger. And then find in regards to gameplay, find those bits of gameplay that people find compelling and draw those out. So again, Assassin's Creed's a stealth game primarily. So most of the action should be done through this like tense stealth, you know, it should be like a thriller, like a pin drop. I'm thinking Mission Impossible in the bank, you know, like a scene like that would have been great for that movie. So yeah, those are what I think. Any thoughts you want to add to that?
I did have a thought. The directors and the writers, producers of the movie industry are not from the gaming industry. They don't. There's no overlap. They're completely isolated.
Right. Whereas like the comic book writers that we have now, they grew up as comic book fans. So they have a heart like. So we need people who grew up playing video games. Which is going to happen.
Like, people, like, as the older movie producers age out, we're going to have a new generation of movie producers and movie writers, directors that are going to have their fingers in their history of gaming.
That's why I think I think it's like we're on the verge of like it exploding. Like, we're on the verge of it being the next comic book. That's why I think it's a cash cow. There are two nerd, you know, because people are starting to get, you can already tell superhero fatigue is a thing. Comic book adaptations are already starting. They're entering their sundown, their twilight, if you will.
The bubble's bursting.
It's gonna burst soon. So what's the next big nerd cash cow that they're gonna find? I think that there's two potentials in my mind: video games and anime. I think similarly, I think if they can find a good, you know, because a lot of anime adaptations, the most recent one was Ghost in the Shell, and a lot of them flop. Because they just don't translate. Death Note is another one that recently that flopped. But I think there's some great stories out there in anime that, similarly, if given the right conditions, I think it would work really well. So I think those are my two cash cows.
It's interesting. Like, I don't know how it's going to work because I'm not in those industries. I'm not the producers or directors, writers, or programmers of any games or movies. But I'm wondering how it's going to work to look at what makes a good movie objectively. And take those paradigms and apply it to a game as a source material. So you're going to grab a game and you're going to be like, okay, what makes a good movie? What can I grab from this video game to make it a good movie? And it's like start small, but it's also themes, like common themes throughout the whole game. A game is 8 to 25 hours.
Yeah.
And if you look at RPGs, they're hundreds of hours. The open world ones are hundreds of hours. So like a movie's 2. An average movie is 2 hours. So it's like taking themes from the game instead of just tropes. Like with Doom, they had to have the first person scene in there. Like, why? Did you really need that? And then, of course, I was disappointed because the game is about Mars and an alien invasion, or demons from hell invading a Mars space base, right? And then the movie was like genetically engineered things attacking Earth, and so like the stories weren't even close. But the theme of Doom is the alone soldier who's by himself. Like everyone's wiped out and dead. Here's this crazy, overwhelming threat that's like this demon invasion from hell, and rock and roll music with crazy big unrealistic guns, and he just goes through this whole base, and like, so you've got a little bit of like scariness, like horror, suspense mixed with survival, survival horror game. None of that was in the movie.
No.
It was just an action, like stupid action thriller, and they botched it.
Yeah.
And so like, looking at what makes a good movie, like you said, there's really intense suspense scenes, but also character building. And so, like, the
atmosphere,
Doom guy, who doesn't have a name, which would make immediately red flag, this is not a good movie. Because there's okay, his name is Doom Guy, and that's not even his official name. That's just what the culture gave him.
Yeah.
Like, okay, Doom Guy is running through an army base on Mars. Why is there an army base here? Is there a war in space? Is it space travel? No one knows that. Okay, this is not a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, red flags everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need a clearly established world that you can then, like you said, show over time. I think you hit on something, too. The atmosphere is really important.
Yes.
Like, trying to, like, in the same way that a good book adaptation or a good comic book adaptation is another one, like, they try to create the same feel. You know, Iron Man's a techno-punk movie. Thor is a fantasy movie. There's a genre blend there that video games already do.
Yep.
A lot of genre blending. So trying to get that feel... Ant-Man's a heist movie. You know, trying to get that feel. Like, video games can do that, too. They're not just action flicks. They shouldn't just be action flicks. They should be whatever the genre they're going for. BioShock is a horror movie set in an underwater city. Like, that atmosphere is so clear.
Yeah. So... we talked about books earlier, and so we know that movies can make really good adaptations of books. Okay, then you look at... I'm going to use Harry Potter for an example, and that's actually referencing one of the articles that we're going to link off to. Was the first Harry Potter movie. Did an amazing job of just taking what's in the book and putting it on the screen.
Yeah.
The third Harry Potter movie was a more thematic approach that wasn't a direct copy from the book, but a ridiculously good movie.
Yeah.
Like, amazing.
Yeah.
Less true to the book, but not in a bad way at all.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we can go from books to movies, and there's tons of proof to do that, I think that video games coming from movies, like going from a movie to a video game, so video games based on movies, we can do that really, really, really well, and we're not doing that a whole lot today.
Right, yeah.
So like to walk you through, sorry, that might have been a little confusing, but you're like to walk you guys through our audience. Aladdin for Sega Genesis was like one of the first video games based on a movie.
Yeah.
And the animations were done right. It was produced by Disney, funded by Disney. I don't remember exactly who developed it, but anyway, it was a hit. It was awesome.
It was like playing
a really good platform.
Yeah, it was like playing the movie. Yeah,
playing Aladdin. Yeah.
I remember Toy Story was pretty good too. The Toy Story game.
It was really hard.
It was very hard.
Yeah. And then
games were hard back then.
Spider-Man 2 for PS2 was one of the best Spider-Man games ever, and it was based on the movie. So we had all the movie characters. Because like you can take the movie, which is limited 2-hour thing, and just expound on it.
Yeah.
So like Spider-Man 2 introduced tons of new villains that weren't even in the movie, like side quests and stuff. And then we had there was a Ghostbusters game for PS3 and Xbox 360 that was it hit. Like, I didn't expect it. I didn't have any hype for it. I just knew they were making it. It came out and it was awesome. Like, true to the movie content. The characters were all there. The atmosphere was perfect, with just more fleshed out environments and more ghosts, and like actually playing and chasing after ghosts was just so much fun. Star Wars Rogue Squadron.
Pod Racer
and Episode 1 Racer.
Yeah.
Like, those weren't direct movie to video game adaptations, but they're set in movie worlds.
Yep.
So like,
in fact, there's a lot of Star Wars games.
Oh, a ton of them. They're so good.
Yeah.
And like, from Super Nintendo on, like Rogue Squadron is just one example. Then there's Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, which was a direct prequel to the Chronicles of Riddick movie.
Yeah.
And it described like how he broke out of prison and how he got his night vision, and it was amazing. The storytelling was awesome. It was a first person like prison break kind of, it was a survival horror kind of type game.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. And then the best
Yep.
video game based on a movie ever made, arguably, is GoldenEye.
GoldenEye. Yep.
Like,
I agree.
how much fun was it to go through all of those movie sets?
Yeah.
Like, the dam at the beginning, the facility after that, and then at the end when you were like, everything went nuts.
And they just happened to tack on a multiplayer mode
was
that
legendary.
defied the genre. Yeah. That pushed the genre forward.
So it can be done that we can make amazing video games from movies. Why isn't it being done today?
Yeah, and now most of them are just these licensed garbage. In fact, the best ones that come out now are like the Lego ones. Like the Lego Harry Potter and Lego Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right.
Like, other than that, I can't think of the last time. You know what? Actually, we already talked about it. The last time I played a movie that was adapted into a video game was the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe game that I still have
Oh, gosh.
for GameCube that we need to play at some point because it was so bad. So it's like in fact that's the last time in recent memory that I played a game based on a movie. So
I guess the Battlefront games, the Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 are kind of modern, and maybe Shadows of Mordor and Shadows of War.
But again, they're so loosely based on, I mean, they're more based off of worlds that movies create than the movies themselves.
Right.
Which is an important distinction. Okay, cool. So for the last little bit of time, I do want to talk about what are some specific video games that we think would make good movies given the right circumstances, and you can elaborate on those circumstances. So if you had a video game wish list, game movie wish list, or video game TV show wish list, what would it be? And I'll start because you brought up BioShock.
Yeah.
I think that BioShock would make an excellent film adaptation, but this is what I would want out of it. If I could be the person throwing the money at it, I would want the director or some kind of involvement, whether writing or directing or both. I would want Guillermo del Toro involved.
Yes.
Because he's already proven that he knows how to bring his cinematic eye to video games. I think he could also bring his appreciation for video games and already having worked on them in a cinematic way into movies. And I think that BioShock would be a great match for him because it's highly stylized.
Yeah.
The new movie he just came out with, The Shape of Water.
Yeah.
It's already kind of takes place in a water universe, so he's proven that he can already work with that element, if you will. So I think Guillermo del Toro would be great. Here's what I would want, though. I don't think that BioShock 1 would make a good movie.
Yeah.
The reason is, the Cracked article gets into this, actually, that the twist in BioShock is unfilmable. Because so much of it takes place in the audio that happens, and we just wouldn't film very well. It's a very visual, film is a very visual medium. So that twist wouldn't work. So I don't think BioShock 1 would make a great movie. BioShock Infinite, they might be able to pull it off. I haven't played BioShock 2 yet.
What we have to do is take all aspects from 3 games, 1, 2, and 3, and figure out like the break it down.
Well, what I think, so here's what I think. I haven't finished. What I think is what makes BioShock great, in my opinion. I'm recently playing through it, so it's fresh in my mind, is the environment, Rapture, this world of Rapture. And then that feeling of something dark and evil that's happening in this world, mixed with this sort of idea of like gene splicing and genetic engineering. That's kind of the sci-fi twist to the story. What would be great, I imagine, is a TV show. So I think it would be great as like an HBO series, high budget HBO series, directed by Del Toro and written and directed by Del Toro, that takes place before the events of the first BioShock.
Yes.
A prequel series titled Rapture that takes place.
So good.
That takes place. You got some of the main big characters, Andrew Ryan, but they're not somehow you have some kind of main character. But this is like before the big daddies, before the little sisters.
Yeah.
The development and building of Rapture, and then mix in the sort of Fontaine and Andrew Ryan dynamic there.
Right. And the whole idea of Rapture is no god, no government.
It's very Ayn Randian. Yeah.
And so you have like you can flesh out some stories of like selfish indulgence leading to the sinful repercussions of that.
And then add it with gene splicing and plasmids, and then you have these people who are then splicing themselves with superpowers.
Right.
It becomes like a weird mix of I almost think of like kind of a Westworld where it's like in this very confined area where things are going to go bad really fast.
Westworld does hit those notes.
Yeah, and then
I can do whatever I want in this Western, and there's just robots, so no one's really affected.
Yeah, but then you do it with genetic engineering and gene splicing for superpowers. Like
and people really are affected.
Yeah, I'm super.
Wow,
that's my vision for a BioShock.
That could be done
adaptation.
really well.
Yeah, that's my dream. That's my first one. Did you have one you wanted to hit?
Yeah, I was thinking, so Uncharted touches so much on Indiana. This is a cheap cop-out answer, but Uncharted touches so much on Indiana Jones. It's kind of like Discover and yet at risk, and it's almost like a fun, jovial, historical exploration, tomb raiding kind of thing where you always have like the antagonist who wants the valuable prize and you gotta race him to it, but you're smarter than... Like, Uncharted hits all that, and Spielberg did Indiana Jones. So I think if Spielberg just kind of took his experience working with those kinds of films and adapted the Uncharted... I love the story of Uncharted and the main characters and their interactions, and I think that could make a really good movie because in Uncharted, it's well-defined. There's no room for you to apply who you are to it, other than your gameplay experience. So, like, you have the interactions of the main characters all fleshed out in the movie, who they are, why they're there, motivation, antagonist, and you could just take it and like make it a really good movie. I think Spielberg could just nail it.
I like that. I like that idea too because, as the Cracked article points out, a lot of these video games are already based off of movies.
Yeah.
So I think a good way to answer that problem
is to make them
the director who made those movies and made them great, let them do the video game adaptation and then just, like you said, add their experience to it, and just like, I think Spielberg.
So you want the
great.
Wachowski brothers to make Assassin's Creed?
Because it's based off the Matrix.
Yeah,
sure, like that'd be sweet. I'd be down.
They could probably do a heck of a lot better job than that one that just came out.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good one. The one I thought of too is I would love to see Pixar do Overwatch.
Ooh.
Only because it's so clearly Blizzard's trying to do like Pixar. Like, it looks like a Pixar. Like, all the cinematics, even the game, like when you're playing it, these characters look like Pixar characters. I think it would be really, partially too because Overwatch's story is so, it doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, I don't
like,
even know
they
it.
don't.
I don't know anything about it.
It's being told right now through comics and some cinematics they release once every 2 years or something like that.
Which make
they don't,
good film or make
exactly. Like, so it doesn't really have much of a story at all, anyways. So it's kind of raw material to work with. Would be really good. The only tricky thing would be they keep adding characters to Overwatch. It would be tempting for the movie makers to try to cram all these characters into one movie. So that's why I would say, like, start with the basics and then add characters through sequels and stuff. Build it in like kind of Avengers kind of way. But seeing Pixar, like, they're already like that animation style, it would be awesome to have Pixar take control of that world. Would be great. So again, it's a fairly new franchise. So. But there's so many things they could do. I mean, the gameplay is fairly conducive to storytelling in the sense that, like, there's control point maps where, like, you're just trying to, that's kind of like King of the Hill. You're trying to stand on that control point for the longest. But then there's other ones that are like escort, where you've got like a payload and you're trying to escort it. Like, that lends itself so well to like a climax of a movie scene. Is they got a big bunch of bombs or something, and they're like having to defend it as they move their way towards the point. That would be sweet. I think that would work really well. In certain movie scenes, and just kind of the idea of like a fun, cartoony action movie. Pixar's already done that with like Big Hero 6 and stuff like that. The Incredibles, I think
Big Hero 6 was Disney. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, but kind of Pixar style. You're right. It wasn't Pixar, but it was definitely inspired by what Pixar started. So
My next one is Horizon Zero Dawn, directed by Peter Jackson.
Ooh,
and I picked that because of his work with Lord of the Rings and Avatar.
Okay,
like very sci-fi world. Open world. Avatar is a huge...
Avatar.
Yeah.
The blue people?
Yeah.
That's
not Peter Jackson?
James Cameron.
Oh. He did King Kong.
Yeah.
I was thinking of King Kong and Avatar.
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah.
I thought it was Peter Jackson, which means I lumped Lord of the Rings in there. But that's not why I chose Horizon Zero Dawn. I was really thinking of Kong and Avatar. That's funny.
That's funny,
that mixed up. So James Cameron. Sorry.
Wait, so you think... Okay. Peter Jackson. Okay, Peter Jackson did King Kong and Lord of the Rings.
Are you serious?
James Cameron did Terminator and Avatar and Titanic.
I'm really completely mixed up.
Yeah, it's cool.
I have no idea who I'm talking about. So who did Avatar?
Avatar was James Cameron.
Okay.
So James Cameron, you want to do Horizon Zero?
Correct.
Okay.
I think the translation of and the feel of Avatar in that world and how he created it and fleshed out all of the weirdness of that, he could easily translate into a post-apocalyptic... like machines running the world, machines took over the world kind of like thing. Sorry if there's any spoilers on that one. I mean, it's not intense spoilers, but the crazy twist at the end, I think if you just got rid of all of the tribal stuff that happened in that game and you just focus on Aloy and her her like
exploring,
and her longing to figure out where she came from and why she's here, and the discoveries that she makes. I'm trying to stay spoiler free, and like the whole like last third of the game doesn't really involve any of the tribes or their wars at all. So I think if like you just get rid of all of that, trim the fat. Couple of cool action sequences involving some of the dinosaurs, but not really focusing on that so much. Yeah. Maybe like one good scene at the beginning that's like focusing on Aloy's hunting abilities and prowess, but really, really highlighting Aloy's tie to the parents thing. So you learn at the very beginning of the game that she was raised by a guy in the wilderness, as an outcast to society, and then like so she
and that affected her decision making.
And she's just longing to belong to a society. This longing for an actual parent relationship to a mom because she was just raised by some dad, and so like it wasn't her dad. It was just some guy who took care of her. So anyway, like highlighting all of those things, I think could make a really good movie adaptation.
As a side note to what you just said, I think that it, even if you did include the tribal stuff, it would make a really good like 3-part movie.
Ooh,
so like the first movie, you're dealing with all the kind of like tribal things of this world, and then like you reveal over time. But you did bring up Jackson. I have to mention, I think Peter Jackson would be good for that too, but only because Peter Jackson has already been connected to a big video game project. Do you remember what it is?
Nope.
Peter Jackson was originally going to be adapting Halo.
Oh, he was involved in that, wasn't he?
And do you know what came out of it?
No.
When it all fell through, he ended up the work he had started on the Halo project,
9?
he turned it into District 9, which was a great movie.
Yeah, that movie was
Granted,
good.
Arguably District 9 is probably better than the Halo adaptation he would have made.
Yeah, probably.
But I still think that like Peter Jackson has already expressed like he has a love for video games, and so I would love to see.
Even though I completely botched their names, they're both good candidates for this movie.
Yeah, they're both good candidates for Horizon Zero Dawn, and again, I would still like to see the Peter Jackson Halo adaptation personally.
Yeah.
I will close this with one more that I think would be great. I'm a huge, as you guys know, huge Borderlands fan. I think Borderlands hits the notes greatly for an adaptation. It has pre-established characters. You don't have any illusions that you're Roland or Lilith or Mordecai. These are already characters that people have attachments to and love, so finding the right cast to play those characters would be awesome. And I would want to see it written and directed by someone like Dan Harmon, who has a great respect for nerd culture, who has proven through Community and Rick and Morty that he knows how to write for nerds. He knows how to write for people who care about properties. And I would want to see it. I would want to see it mostly maintain the style it already has. Like, don't try to make it a live action movie. Do it in some kind of weird CG cartoon, like cell shading. Yeah. Like, can you imagine like live action cell shading? Kind of like what they did with like the Beowulf movie, where it was like live action CG and it was weird in that. But like for Borderlands, it might work, where it's like you have motion, you have a good cast of mocap actors.
Yeah.
A-Ray, call out.
Hey.
We have good mocap actors, and you do this kind of like cell shading for a movie written and directed by Dan Harmon. I would love it. I would think it would lend itself very well. Again, it's because it's comedy. Like, comedy is very approachable when it comes to adapting. I mean, look at what Marvel's done. They really try to draw out the comedy in their movies.
Almost
because
too much.
Sometimes too much. Yeah, sometimes to their own detriment. But because comedy's approachable, you can come to an adaptation that's a comedic adaptation, and it opens you up to a new experience. Because if it makes you laugh, then you're having a good time.
Yeah.
So I think that Borderlands would be another good candidate for an adaptation. But yeah, that's all we have for the day. I hope we talked about this in a way that makes you excited for the possibilities, while
I know we stimulated some people to respond.
Yeah, for sure.
So please go post on our Reddit page at 80bit pod. Reddit, the subreddit is 80bit Podsmash. Facebook is facebook.com/80bit Podsmash.
Yeah.
Twitter.com/80bit Podsmash. It's all there. Go find us. Tweet at us. Post at us. We will respond and love to interact with you guys.
Yeah, tell us what movies you would like to see adapted into video games, or vice versa. What video games you think would make great movies? Or if you think that you agree with the earlier statements and that it's just not possible, we want to hear that too.
Yep.
Thus far, you're right. Or, again, it's a very common idea in the culture that video games just don't make good movies. So, let us hear your arguments. Tell us where you think that we have faulty logic, or think that we're just not right and won't work. So
please head on over to iTunes and give us a review.
Yes.
It's the way that we can have our name bubbled up into the trending streams to be
I'm
found
waiting.
by everyone.
I'm waiting for us to get a star rating based on our reviews, because right now it says you don't have enough reviews for a rating.
So even if you don't use iTunes to listen to us, just log in there and hit us a star, whatever stars you think we deserve.
However many stars you think we deserve. But yeah, we'll be back next week with a new topic, and we look forward to engaging with y'all.
Right. This has been an 80-bit Podsmash production.